NASCAR has once again laid the hammer down on a driver, and it is for race and playoff manipulation tactics. But I think that even though this probably, honestly, is the right call when it comes to penalizing this driver, NASCAR's penalty and response about the penalties has painted itself into a corner and, from its own words now, in a way, has compromised the NASCAR playoff system. Now, I want to get straight on into this, starting off with the penalty itself. At the end of the Charlotte Roval race, Cole Custer was ahead of Austin Dillon and Chase Briscoe. Going down the normal oval backstretch to the chicane, Custer abruptly loses speed, holds up the 3 car, lets the 14 by, and then is subsequently dumped for doing this later. And there was really nothing on the broadcast about it that had pointed to the fact that Custer had manipulated the end of the race, only that it seemed like he had held up Dillon to help his teammate. But ultimately, audio came out about it. It was pretty much proven that it happened. And NASCAR responded with a 50-point penalty for both the driver of Cole Custer and the ownership of Stewart-Haas Racing, with $100,000 fines being levied to Custer and his crew chief, who was indefinitely suspended. And again, I think penalizing this is the right call. If it's going to be a playoff format that NASCAR rolls with, well, you might as well enforce a lot of the rules going along with it. But the problem is that this looked eerily similar to 2 other incidents that happened in the last 2 NASCAR playoffs. And the first of those is in 2020. With Erik Jones being told not to pass Denny Hamlin at the end of the 2020 Martinsville race. Hamlin was on the brink of being eliminated from the playoffs after having a championship-level year. And as he was getting approached by the number 20 car of Erik Jones, which was his teammate at the time, Jones heard over the radio not to pass the 11 to make sure the 11 didn't lose any spots. And what happened? The 11 didn't lose any spots, and he got to go on to the final 4 in Phoenix. And that's something I would say that is very similar to what happened with Cole Custer, who was told to slow it down because he had 2 flat tires, even though his crew chief couldn't see the car. And it's pretty clear that all were talking in a way to help their playoff-eligible teammate. Another one that this looks like, and it's one that most people have brought up instead of the Joe Gibbs Racing incident, is that from Hendrick Motorsports at Bristol in the night race in 2021. In this one, Chase Elliott fell out of the race because of a bit of contact and racing hard with Kevin Harvick. Elliott was rightfully mad as he lost the ability to go for a win and insure himself into the round 12 that year, so he came back out on the track and held up Kevin Harvick. This would cost Harvick the win, and he wouldn't get a victory until almost 2 years later in 2022. And a lot of people are asking, well, why are you penalizing the 41 when it wasn't distinctly said, only said in code to do something like that, when you could see on the radio Elliott say he was going to, quote, help the 5, ultimately manipulating the race. And this is what Scott Miller from NASCAR had to say about their ruling when it comes to this current SHR issue versus that of an HMS or Joe Gibbs Racing issue.
Well, in involvement over the radio and instructions over the radio that could not even be construed as anything else. Definitely, like, those are the things that you can't overlook. You know, I mean, could we call it teamwork? Like, you know, yeah, teams work together, they draft together, they do all kinds of things together and work as a team, but blatantly pulling over and changing the finishing order on the last lap is what makes it over the top, and especially with instructions from the pit box.
Now, many were questioning this reasoning that NASCAR was using for why one was penalized while two others weren't. And the biggest voice questioning this was that of Rodney Childers, Kevin Harvick's crew chief for the number 4 team, which is the teammate of both Cole Custer and of Chase Briscoe. And Childers said this on his Twitter: "Now officially okay for a teammate to manipulate the championship race at Phoenix as long as no one says anything on the radio. Even if there is live SMT data showing a guy running half throttle on the straight and jamming the brakes getting into each corner. Hashtag got it." And this is exactly right. NASCAR inadvertently, through bad wording of it in their response and also inconsistent enforcement of penalties, has basically made it okay for team orders to run amok as long as it was said off the record. That right there should lead to a lot of questioning. And the sad thing is that we've seen this, like I said, in 2020 at Martinsville with the Joe Gibbs Racing teammates, at 2021 with the Hendrick Motorsports teammates, this year with SHR, and it's getting further and further and further past the realm of being salvageable. Now, the issue here that I see popping up is that it's only a matter of time now before a driver is getting either run down or is falling behind another driver that they're going for a championship against. Their teammate slows down, holds up their competition, and ultimately that guy wins the championship, even though it was obvious team orders. But hey, they never said anything whatsoever on the radio, so they can't get penalized. This is the nightmare scenario that NASCAR is dreading, and I think NASCAR knows is going to happen at some point. And again, in my opinion, and I might be beating a dead horse while being a broken record saying this again is a product of this playoff format. It leads to more and more incidents like this. I'm not going to say this wouldn't happen with a full season format or even the 10-man or 12-man chase that we used to have. But what I'm saying is that these kind of scenarios were very, very unlikely. And when they did happen, it got nailed, like in 2013 with Spingate, and ultimately no one would want to dare do something like that again. Where at this point, NASCAR really can't enforce what they're saying they're trying to. There's just no way unless they can read people's minds. And it's only a matter of time before this happens at Phoenix, and NASCAR can't overturn it on the day. NBC cannot go dark, cannot end the season without a determined champion. You can't just say one guy did when everyone's watching at the finish, and then 15 minutes later when half the audience is tuned out, say, actually, they cheated to get the win, so the guy who finished second is the champion. What little legitimacy that's left with this system will completely go out the window when most of your audience finds out about this championship change at the Daytona 500 the next year. That's what could happen, because most fans do not keep up week to week. For instance, when you look at how many people watch NASCAR Race Hub, it's about 100,000. How many people would watch the finale? Well over 3 million. So you're telling me that at the least, about 3 million people will find out at the Daytona 500 the next year who wins a championship when they thought somebody else had won for the entire winter. You're telling me that this kind of controversy will have to be rehashed so people that are new to the sport can find out about it from the get-go. That is the problem. Basically, what could happen is a team could force NASCAR's hand and say, try me. That's what they could do. They could do that in the finale. And once again, it just shows how flawed this system is. How over and over and over again, we keep having stupid scenarios like this, and we keep chipping away at NASCAR's crumbling legitimacy when it comes to basically how anyone outside the sport views them. That's the big problem here. This is the long-term ramification that we could see in this. But that's just my take. I want to hear from you. Do you think that this is as big a deal as I and many others are making it out to be, or is it a bit of an overreaction? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, if you want to hear more about this, be sure to watch the NASCAR Weekly Podcast tonight on Danny B Talks channel at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Going to be a really fun time. And while you're at it, before then, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content. And thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support. So until next time, have a good one.